The symbolism of the mirror is also sometimes representing the Dharmakaya, or the truth body. Having the aspects of purity, a mirror is clear from pollution, and wisdom, a mirror reflects all phenomena without distinction. And this motif is pervasive throughout Buddhist literature, and especially to the traditions of Dogen. I'm always very interested in kind of the historical background of things. So I did a little research, and this koan is from 13th century Japan. It was, I think it was a little after Dogen's time. It was a samurai period. And this text was found in a record of koans called Shonan Koan Record. So I'll read you the koan and then explain a little bit about the history also. The convent of Tokije had a great mirror. The founding abbess, Kakuzan Shido, would meditate before it in order to see her own nature. Later generations of nuns would practice zazen in front of the mirror, concentrating on the question, where is a single feeling, a single thought in the mirror image at which I gaze? Each abbess of Tokije wrote a verse in response to the mirror practice. The following verse was composed by the fifth abbess, Princess Yodo. Heart unclouded, heart clouded. Standing or falling, it is still the same body. The way that mirror meditation started was that one of the nuns had a dream, and she saw this mirror floating over the ocean. And the mirror talked to her, and it said, I'm the mirror of the great shrine, and the entire future is reflected in me, and a war is coming. So she didn't really know what to think about that. So she told other people in the village about her dream, and word made its way to the local warlord, who wasn't really sold on the dream, but thought, well, hey, it doesn't hurt to be prepared. So he did prepare his troops, and they won. There was a war, and they won. And in commemoration of this, he had a mirror made, a 6-foot diameter mirror, and it was installed in the mirror hall of this particular shrine. So over time, the mirror sort of traveled here and there, and it ended up at Tokiji Monastery. And it was in a room that was actually like a mirror hall, but was later changed to a zendo. And all of the nuns agreed that they wanted the mirror to stay there. The readings that Chris shared with us from Earthland about looking at herself in the mirror for 5 minutes a day for 7 days, I tried this. I actually did it for 4 days for 5 minutes. And it was a lot harder than I thought it would be. At first it's the kind of thing you would expect. Oh God, my eyebrows are asymmetrical and my glasses are tilted. And there's that mole on my cheek that I just hate. And it's all about form. It's all about physical objects. And then, like on the second day, I could see that, I really look like my dad, things like that. But yeah, once my mind quieted, by the last time I did it, I had this just really interesting sensation of looking at myself in the mirror and thinking, this is a kind person. And that was really nice for me. So if you're feeling adventurous, you can try this. And I just want to leave you with a quote from Zenju's commentary on this koan. If we look long enough in the mirror of Zazen, we will see more of who we are and not so much. Our minds face ourselves as objects first, hair color, skin. If you look long enough, you will see that we are nature itself. We are born and we will die. Sometimes in Zazen, we see the mirror that is clear, no clouds or dust. Human condition is set aside. I am fulfilled in my own spirit. I am returned to an open field with many possibilities. Thank you. And now Ellen. The audios are breaking up a little bit, but let's see how it goes.
Oh, here we go.
Can you hear me now? How does that sound?
Louder.
Lousy?
No, louder.
I never know up here.
Thanks. I think there must be something in the air. I had really planned on being there tonight. And then I had taken my friend to Kaiser on last Friday to get a blood work done. And then we went out to lunch and I drove her. Well, I came home today in the afternoon and she said she was just diagnosed with COVID and that she felt like she'd been hit by a truck. So, and she's 81 and not in really great health. She's my dearest friend who brought me to Buddhism. And anyway, I really wish her well. Think of my friend Kathy Galvin. But anyway, I took a test and so far I'm negative, but I told Debbie that I probably should stay at home until I'm sure of my condition. I am so glad that Debbie suggested this koan. I never would have chosen it, and it just tied together so many things. And you know, this is the first time I really recognize the importance of a koan, and I don't know if I'm doing it right or not, but it kind of like brought things forth, and then I cogitated on them, thinking that I would be, you know, participating in this talk today, and it's been a really useful time. So what Debbie was reading from Zenju's reflection has a lot to do with things that I'd like to say. I'm fulfilled in my own spirit, and in this recognition, I feel the connection to my ancestors, to those who came before me, or to a life larger than my own. I'm returned to an open field in which there are many possibilities. And along with that, for the more I was thinking about it, I was remembering a talk that a Dharma talk that Chris gave 2 Thursdays ago. And it was from Joan Sutherland's book, Through Force of Every Color, Awakening with Koans. And there were so many things she said in that I went back and listened to the recording. Unfortunately, I have to say, if you're looking for recordings in our brand new spiffy newsletter that's showing time this week, in our mad cutting and pasting before Chris went to New Zealand, that disappeared. So you can't check out recordings this week, but next week it'll be in next week's newsletter. But anyway, I went back to her recording, and
Excuse me, Ellen. Actually, if you go on YouTube and search for Dharma Heart Zen, talks are on there.
oh, good. Okay, that's good to know. Next week it'll be like a link, like it has been historically. Anyway, so you know, I went back and listened to her talk again, and boy, it just seems like there's so many similarities to this koan. One of the first things that Joan Sutherland said was, we need to start with housekeeping, habits and opinions that restrict us, seemingly insolvable problems in the world. this sounded to me like this koan about heart clouded, heart unclouded, heart unclouded, heart clouded. So what I'd like to do today is to point out the similarities and kind of, bounce the two, Chris's commentary on Joan Sutherland's book and this koan and the things that Zenju Earthling said about this koan. So like Debbie said a couple weeks ago when we first got together, she said, oh, I think it'd be fun if we just, she didn't say it'd be fun, but she said, how about if we, in order to do this, we agree to sit in front of the mirror every day for 5 minutes. Sure. How hard could that be? So after doing this for a few days, the thing that just kept jumping out at me was that whenever I looked in the mirror, I looked exactly like my father. And I have, my father's, I would say, the bane of my existence, a teaching tool, whatever. We've had a troubled relationship until even now, but he died a couple of years ago. And he's been on my mind more than usual lately, because as many of you know, my husband died in October. And I'm trying to figure out, well, what name am I going to use going forward? My maiden name or my married name? And the more I thought about going back to my maiden name, my family name, I thought it was just inconceivable to me. And I, part of it was like, that's not who I am. I kept thinking, that's not who I am. And I'm Ellen Sherron. So, but coming to that has been really painful to realize that the name that I was born and raised with and had for a good part of my life, it didn't fit me anymore. So, with that in mind, and then I look in the mirror and I see my father's face, it was not a pleasant experience. And, I think one of the things that's so good about Zazen is you get to like sit and you get to, that's interesting. That's really interesting. And, you try to observe what's going on. So going on, in Chris's talk, she reminded us of something that she said before you were born, what was your original face, your original body? So again, this question has always been hard for me because both of my parents were adopted. And so when we were growing up, neither my sisters or I or my parents, we didn't have none of our relatives look like us. And we would see family pictures and none of them looked like us. And, it was kind of unnerving. So I don't know anything about their faces, or I don't have any stories about them. I don't know who they were or what they did. They're just like, I have no idea what my original face and my original body was. I could do that, the 23andMe, but I just feel like I've paid such a heavy price, no higher price than other people, but I don't want to know any more about who came before. But when I was in my 30s, I did get to meet my father's birth mother, and I do look a lot like her, and it's really surprising. We have a lot of the same mannerisms. She showed us some pictures of her family, and it was very cool to see at 30 ancestors that we look like. They were German, and they lived in Odessa, Russia, and migrated to Montana to homestead. So I really have no idea of the possibilities of who were where or who I was before I was born, except for my father, who every time I look in the mirror, I look just like him. So Joan goes on to say, reflection on your original face shows you how to abide nowhere. Who are you? Then Zenju said, I feel the connection to my ancestors, to those who came before me. And then, she says, or to a life larger than my own. The last part was encouraging. It was the only part of that sentence that I could identify with. So I was not raised in any spiritual tradition, and I have always been pretty opposed to organized religion. And somehow when I was 41 years ago, I joined AA, and they said, you have to get a power greater than yourself, or you're not going to be able to stay sober. And, I know I don't want to do that, but, I believed in that was really necessary. And out of the blue, this thing popped into my head that every creature on earth knows exactly how to be and how to do everything it's supposed to do in its life. It knows how to be a perfect, whatever it is. I think of a bird. A bird knows how to fly. It knows where to fly, when to fly. It knows how to do the mating dance. It knows exactly the right song to sing. It knows exactly how to build its nest and how to raises chicks and lay eggs. And, that's a lot in a little bird. He doesn't have to read a book about it or think about it. And I couldn't argue with that, and I realized my idea was that if I could just get out of my own way, I am a creature on this earth, and I would know how to do it too, if I just get out of my own way. So, I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe that's the clouded heart, the things that are in the way of me recognizing my true nature. So the idea of true nature is something that I've been paying attention to for 41 years, at least. I'm seeing this a lot lately. I got a new puppy. If you've seen her a lot, she sits on my lap when I meditate. She's a born Buddhist. Her name is Hazel. And it's just wonderful to see her, especially when she can get outside on a nice day. She knows exactly from the moment she was born how to be a perfect rat terrier. And she follows the older dog, Lily, who's also a rat terrier. And she knows how to you can see her copying the older dog, learning how to do it. And the older dog, this is a side of her I'd never known. She's 12 years old and she knows exactly how to nurture and help and train this small dog. I recently introduced, a friend gave me a rooster, and it's one of the things I like about roosters chickens, is just watching how they accept and create a flock and how they put the whole thing together. And that's always been really exciting to me. So watching the 7 hens accept this rooster has been an entertaining experience. And then anybody that knows me knows that I'm really interested in bees, and I have hives. And it's, when you look at bees, they're so tiny, and you think, well, they're just a dumb bug. But the things that is in their nature, the things that they know, like how to find exactly the right kind of flower, how to get to the good stuff, and how to bring it back, and how to build comb. And oh my goodness, they know exactly how to do everything they're going to be called upon to do. And recently, in the last week or so, when a hive gets to be a certain size, it just says, we're too big. Too many of us, half of us have to take the old queen and go somewhere else. And, they just do that. And so I was lucky enough to get a swarm and help install it in one of my hives. And then the next week, we have a log hive from a man named Michael Taylor in front, and it put out a big swarm, and I got to be a part of the group of people that help collect this swarm and give it to somebody else. So, it seems like I'm getting instructions on the things that other creatures know how to do. And, I know how to do it too. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Joan Sutherland, and she's in her talk, in her book, she's talking about the 3 bodies in the Mahayana Buddhist tradition. The first is the body of form in a world of cause and effect. The body that, I like this, the body that likes to eat peaches, has lots of opinions, and gets bruised in car wrecks. And she said it was the body of Shakyamuni Buddha, who has a body just like you and me and understands suffering. So, I sure know a lot more about this body, probably like most of you. But when I look in the mirror, I'm surprised. I would think, I would look in the mirror and I'd see I'm an old woman. I'm an old widow, the widow Sherron. But instead I look in the mirror and I go, wow, here's a person that is, she's been lucky enough to have almost 75 years. Either you get to be that old or you die before you get to be that old. And a few years ago, I have 5 grandchildren, and one of them was looking at me and she said, Grandma, you got all these wrinkles on your face. And I said, this is exactly the way an old person looks, it's like it's a pejorative, and I said, when you were 2, you looked a certain way. When you were 5, you looked the way a 5-year-old looks. This is the way you look when you're an older person. And it's like, I get to be an older person. So I look in the mirror and I go, this is interesting. And I think Zenju Earthland Manual agrees. She says, I am not old, middle-aged, or young. I am fulfilled in my own spirit. And it's like all of the things I've ever been in my life. I've been this, a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, a teenager, a mother. I've been all of these things, but which was the real me, I probably, if I saw myself as 5 years old across the street, I wouldn't recognize myself, but it's me, or whatever I passed for in this life. And then the second body that Chris talked about was a body of vastness, of a Tao, something called the true body, the aspect that everything is eternal and perfect just as it is. It's the body of emptiness, formlessness. Every once in a while, I kind of maybe get a glimpse of what this is like when I'm meditating, but that's mysterious. The third body she was talking about was really thrilling to me. It was referred to as the liminal space, where there's the dream body, the space where things have emerged from the vastness, but aren't yet fixed in form.
Mhm.
Chris calls this the imaginal body. She said that in the Tibetan tradition, they meditate on these dream bodies. They merge into you and you merge into them. The body can hear and taste and the world as well as touch it. It's where dreams, myths, bodhisattvas, meditation visions, and inspirations for art are found. Is this my true nature? I like this one. So Joan and Chris both suggest that these three aspects of the body are simultaneous, and each is an aspect of the whole, and informs a full life response will include all three bodies. Chris said that living in alignment with these realms is an enormously created place and full of potentiality, which is what the world needs. She also said, this is how we're going to get through the climate crisis. This is how we're going to save each other. It's not the way we think. It's alive and it's creative. I was really encouraged to hear this. One of my gripes about Buddhism is it's opened my heart up, and I can't turn away. The thousand hands and eyes, and you see what's happening, and I do take a vow to save all beings, but exactly how? What do I do? What do I do with this body and this incarnation to do it? So when I went back and looked in the mirror, one of the things that turned for me is that my father was a problematic character, but one thing about him that I inherited, that I've been thinking about it for a while, but starting to pay attention to, was that he was the kind of person that would have ideas in his head, and he didn't have to know what it would look like. He didn't read a book about it or anything, but he would just take his ideas, and he had a way of manifesting them in the world. And I got to watch that over and over. He was a real estate developer, and some of the things he created were pretty wonderful, but they came out of his head. And I think the thing that I inherited from him is that I can have an idea, and I don't have to see what it looks like in the end. I just have to kind of feel like I'm going to move toward it and figure things out as I go along. And so I started feeling like, I'm really grateful that I got that, along with his arthritis, I guess. And it's something that you get some of this and you get some of that, and I think the ability to be able to do that, it gives me a chance of being useful in the world. I can have faith of that something can happen without having proof of it. And Zenji says, an open field in which there are many possibilities. So then finally, Chris ends her talk by discussing yet another body, which Joan Sutherland describes. In Buddhist mythology, there are many bodies, one for each age. There's the Shakyamuni Buddha body, the incarnation of human suffering, and the Maitreya Buddha, the incarnation of friendliness and loving kindness. These Buddhas have always been solitary, heroic figures, but Thich Nhat Hanh says that maybe the Buddha of this time is the Sangha. And whenever I've been involved in, volunteer political things, one of my big gripes has just been that we're all waiting for the great leaders, the Moses, to lead us out of this, that there's going to be somebody that we can vote for or elect or something, and all of our we can go back and, watch TV. And, I loved Obama that said, we're the change we've been waiting for, I'm feeling like that, that there's something about Sangha where, I've been parts of a lot of volunteer groups, and if you've been part of volunteer groups, that they're often kind of hard. People have a hard time working together, getting anything done. They tend to burn people out. And I always say before I die, I just hope to be part of a functional volunteer group. Well, I like, the thing I like about Sangha is that we kind of are trying to figure out, what do we do in the world? How do we save all beings? How do we act on our kind hearts? And I think we're like junior high school kids, you know, we just practice with each other. We're learning how to do things together. And I think this is a practice of being the cooperative body. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Alan. I think the thing about